Darren, you said you're looking for players who fit our team and our culture. What does that mean? Who are those type of players?
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly in there. Makeup is very important, how these players are wired. But we're still having those discussions and going through that process about how we want to build this team and the specifics of each, player position and those makeup.
Yeah, when you look, obviously a lot of these GM jobs open because the teams weren't very good. When you look at this roster, do you see kind of an exception to that when you have as many young foundational pieces on both lines and playmakers as you have?
I do. I felt that very much so. It's a talented roster here, and we're going to continue to add to it.
How much did you look into the roster and look into the foundational talent before even taking this interview?
A lot. That was a big part of it. That's part of the process, knowing the roster and the players and the current makeup that you have. And we're still going through that process, too. I'm still learning. I'm going to get with the scouts here tonight. We're going to dive into it and I want to hear from them because they know this roster better than I do right now.
Darren, can this team win now?
I believe so.
When you say now, what level do you think you can win at?
We're going to win games. I think you felt that from AG, the talented players. We're going to win games here.
What will be the plan with Aaron Rodgers? Will you guys go talk to him?
Yeah, AG mentioned that. I'll say this about Aaron. First and foremost, I got the most respect for Aaron Rodgers and what he's done in this league as a player. One of the greatest of all times to play the position, one of the greatest players of all time. So I know Aaron has his process in the offseason that he goes through. We have ours, but yeah, that day's going to come. I don't have a timeline on it, but I look forward to it.
Specifically, though, with Aaron, from the film you've seen, if you watched anything on him, I mean, what is your impression of him at the moment as a quarterback?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on those things. We're still going through the process, and he's going to go through his, but we'll get there.
What would your message be to Jets fans?
That get excited, strap it up like AG said to the players too. It's going to be fun.
Going back to that interview with AG, where if you had the last word, would you have hired him right there?
Yeah, it's funny. You felt the energy, right, guys? I mean, he gets up there. It's natural. It's easy for him. And at that time when we interviewed him, it was his first year as a coordinator, and the Lions had just won 3 games. And he wasn't quite ready maybe at that time, but we all knew he was going to be a head coach. I think you guys see that.
How important were those conversations you guys had when you were here for your second interview? Like, just seeing if you guys would be a fit just from both ends.
Very important. Very important. You just talk philosophy, you talk the roster, you talk your vision for the team, how you want to build it, and amongst a lot of other things. But it's important.
Darren, it's a little of a non-traditional setup that they had where usually the GM gets hired and then the GM hires the coach. The coach was hired here before the GM. How does that work? Because people would call that an arranged marriage, and those don't always work out in the NFL.
No, I think you've actually seen it, happening more and more. And I don't consider it like that. I think they both had their processes. There was a lot of dialogue throughout the process on both parties too. So I don't necessarily feel it like that.
Do you have the final say on the roster and personnel decisions?
Yeah, I'll say this about any player acquisition, whether we're adding or subtracting, that is going to be a decision with Aaron and I both. It's a we. If a player we add, it's our decision.
This team hasn't made the playoffs in 14 years, the longest in professional sports. How much do you embrace that challenge of turning it around?
I think it's a great opportunity. I don't see it as a challenge. I think it's a great opportunity because of the foundational pieces that are here and the coaches we're going to get, and we're going to give these guys everything they need.
Darren, the benefit of getting this job is you've got some pretty damn good players on the roster. A couple of those players that were also due for potentially new contracts do you have a belief system you go into when it's time to start paying players, where get it done earlier, get it done later?
I mean, it changes. It depends on where you're at. Every player is different, but we'll have all of those conversations, and when you have thorough process, they take care of themselves. But you don't have a necessarily hard philosophy. It's somewhat fluid, case by case.
When you said earlier, keep your own, does that mean your guys that you're going to bring in here, or does that include the guys that you would
Jets players, it's just when you know what you got in the building and it's good, you want to keep it together.
Obviously, Aaron's a short-term because he's going to be 42. What is your long-term? How important is it to establish a long-term quarterback plan?
I mean, obviously it's important, but we're going to have a lot of dialogue and conversation about the quarterback position, and we'll explore and exhaust every option.
In Denver, when you were in Denver, there were several different avenues you guys went to find a quarterback before you got to Bo. You went the free agent route, the trade route, and then eventually drafted somebody. Yeah. How much did you learn throughout that process about evaluating quarterbacks?
I learned a lot. You said it. We've kind of done it every way. Trade for a guy, draft another guy, and I learned a lot that I'm going to take with me to this situation here.
You talk about assessing the whole roster. How can you do that without clarity on
Oh, we're going to evaluate the whole roster always. Like I said earlier, we're going to meet tonight with the scouts, the pro scouts here, and they're going to talk us through it. We're going to go through every guy, not just the quarterback, because every position matters and is important.
Darren, how are you handling your staff? Have you made any hires?
No, I haven't. Guys, I just got here less than 24 hours ago, to be honest. I haven't found my office this morning for the first time, but I'm looking forward to listening a lot. There's a lot of people here. I got a lot of questions, and we're going to talk, and I'm going to listen.
Do you plan on having some people in place here, like before the combine?
I have not made any of those plans other than get with AG and help him get this coaching staff in place first.
Thanks, Darren.